Of course, he's in the middle of nowhere with birds. I don't even know if we'll be able to hear anything with all the birds going on in the background. This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to another episode of the Tapped In Sales Podcast, your podcast for beer distributors by beer distributors. I am your hostess with the mostest, Bud, here with Moneyball Ross, Data Mike, and we have a new guest today, Sean Baker from Rarig Pacific. Sean, thanks for joining us today. We're so excited to have you here. I've known Sean for, how long we've known each other? At least a few years now, but you're a seasoned veteran of the industry and have been around a ton. I love the way you think about the world, and we're going to dive into everything operational. So I'm probably the least qualified operation person on the call compared to the rest of you three knuckleheads. So today should be a fun conversation around everything that you're doing, what you're seeing top performing distributors do in the world, and all that good stuff. But yesterday we were prepping for this, Sean, and you talked to me about a distributor that you felt like was just running their business on a hope and a prayer on the operational side, my man. So let's start there and then kind of tell people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I encounter these calls 3 or 4 times a month as I support the sales team. And when we're really diving into like ROI calculations, some of the important information we need to know requires some operational visibility. And in fact, the exact quote was, well, I was sort of making my decision based on vibes. And I said, that's not vibes. That's hope and a prayer, right? And what it really came down to is like having the truth of what like overs and shorts are and what actually happens versus what is reported it can be vastly different, right? And so when you run your business on assumptions, it's really hard to measure effectively, or you can't manage what you can't measure, things like that, right? And so it's one of those worlds where, as passionate as I am about everything, I can't accept just some sort of status quo or like the cost of doing business. Like, well, it just hits our shrink bucket. That's not yes, it's the cost of doing business, but you can mitigate that risk and that cost if you really wrap your mind around it and you focus on the problem and then figure out how to solve it. And so it's these conversations that are recurring, and it's not just in beer, to be honest. It's beverage, or how the lines blur. It's food service. It's kind of a disease, right? And so I think at the end of the day, good operators rely on vibes when systems can't give them the truth. And that to me is the clear opportunity in this industry, is to really move to a verified truth world.
Love it.
All I can hear in my head is Bon Jovi. Living on a prayer, baby.
Yeah. Not going to acapella.
I got that theme song starting. I mean, we should play it if it wasn't for the copyright strike, right?
Right.
How many copyright strikes do we get?
We get shadow banned enough from our swearing. We're going to shadow ban in a minute as soon as we put Bon Jovi on this thing.
Oh, man, right. Bon Jovi, the state will be up our ass.
My career has been about crossing departments and working in various functional areas of the entire industry. And on July 10th of 2003, when I walked in for my first day at Crescent Crown, which back in the day was Pierce Beverage, shortly before Bubba and the leadership team came in and took over the Arizona operations. And I had no idea, hindsight, right, that I would be looking back now and having traveled the journey that I've gone on. And so I think one thing people get out of me initially is this incredible sense of energy and passion towards the industry. And I was on a call with some NBWA folks the other day, and I was just so excited to just continue to talk about the beer industry, even though I've traveled into different spots of it in different places. And so Crossing multiple departments provides a lot of unique opportunities for myself and stories that I can share. And that's generally how I try to connect the dots, especially for younger generations coming into the industry. And now I just feel super old saying that, because I look back and I was 21 and 2 months old when I started, and I've never looked back. And if I look at where I started, I cut my teeth driving a beer truck. I was downstacking cases off of a side loader. I moved to an end loader. Then I moved into operations leadership. And I was one of the people challenged at that time with redesigning our go-to-market strategy for our large format execution teams, because, nowhere near what they are now, but fuel prices were increasing. Everything was increasing back in 03, 05, 06. And it was like, how can we do this in a better way? Route optimization was somewhat there, right? But it's nowhere. It was nowhere where it is today. And I started to really embrace, as like a youngster, how I could tackle these challenges and then attempt to teach a bunch of old dogs new tricks, right? And I stood out as a leader, spent a number of years at Crescent Crown, moved into warehouse operations for a little while, then moved over to the sales side. And I became incredibly obsessed with the sales process. And I saw how people who harnessed the sales process became eminently successful in being able to always meet their distribution goals, always meet their volume goals, always hit selling in execution goals, executing programs at large format and things like that. And I had the unique opportunity to sell to all segments of the business. I was on a hybrid route, kind of proving myself, selling to the Kroger and the Walmart on the same day as the independent drive-through liquor store, on the same day as the independent on-premise or chain on-premise store. And so I got this perspective of how they just all kind of operate differently. And then I took all that knowledge and I became a sales trainer, because I mentioned I was obsessed with the process. And so I wanted to become a teacher of those things, a mentor of those things. And so when you think about like an approach body proof close method or the 10 steps to a sales call, and educating, enabling, and embedding those behaviors within an organization was just fascinating to me. I did that for a while, and during that time, procured a few cool accolades. On-premise employee of the year at the time. We had an internal recognition program called the Service Master, where it was
your liver must have loved you for that.
Yeah.
We all know what that means.
Yes. And I mean, if anybody knows Arizona or knows the on-premise, the last dedicated territory I had was Old Town Scottsdale, right? Where everything happens. And this was when like the Waste Management Open was like starting to grow arms, a leg, and a tail, and is now this crazy monster, right? And so it was just really a fun time that laid the foundation for what I could do. And I could take the understanding of retail execution, shelf standards, display standards, rotation standards, and I could implement those as well as sales processes into where I went. And I joined the Anheuser-Busch network on the supplier side, and I moved to Las Vegas. This was when the high-end team at that time was really starting to come together, and they were acquiring all these craft breweries, and some of them were just incredible brands to sell. And I was in, that's a market where you can give away the farm to get a pig, right? I mean, it's a unique market where many states are regulated. There's a lot more kind of crazy fun stuff you can do there. And so there was this learning curve. I picked up on it. Then I ran trade marketing in Northern California and had a team of about 40 employees at that time. And so then moving over to California, and then what I got to do as a leader was really start to embed different behaviors and embracing that sales process within my team to help us achieve our goals and execute towards our goals. At that time, that's where, and the reason I kind of go there is technology really started to enter the equation for me at that time. And this was like 2016 to 2018. We were using basic zip code level beer industry data to target where we should sell the right brands and the right accounts or in the right zip codes in the right place, right? Like it's hard to sell certain brands in San Francisco, but you can sell those brands in the Central Valley. Vice versa, selling certain brands in the Central Valley became challenging because it was all about the consumer. What was the consumer telling us that they wanted in those markets? And so when I joined Heineken, I was on a team of 4 that quite literally transformed the go-to-market strategy from a volume-centric, here have been our historical great accounts, to let's literally focus on this retailer on one corner and this retailer on another corner, have 2 different consumers. Let's set our KPIs based around what the consumer within each one of those stores is actually looking for, whether it's a Tecate consumer, a Dos Equis consumer, et cetera, and bringing in all that demographic data to help tell a story. And then every time a Heineken sales team member walked into an account, their KPIs were dynamic by geocoded areas at the retail store location level. It's still a system that I've heard they largely use today. And I should have spent more time there. I really love that role, but in the spirit of growth, I went to a startup at the time, Crook and Marker, had a region of about 7 states, but ultimately had a region of about 20 states. And I learned how to successfully travel an entire state of Montana on a day's notice and launch a brand within an entire network of distributors, starting in Kalispell and working my way all the way to Billings and hitting Bozeman and Great Falls and everywhere along the way. And so one of the more unique weeks I've had in my career. And but then just really felt this itch that technology was the way to go. And this was the biggest blessing in my life because this was about 6 months before COVID. And I joined B2B e-commerce, leading a team of distributor managers on quite literally working with partner distributors on selling the B2B e-commerce marketplace concept to their retailers, while all of these sales reps at these distributors were looking at me on a stage saying, you're literally going to replace my job if I go sell this to an account. And it's like, you're missing the concept here, right? This is about creating space where you quit being an order taker. Think like if you pre-plan your day and you execute your day well, you should be maximizing your conversation time with your retail decision makers, not by taking inventory, by doing in-store execution, supporting, making sure products are available, and then bringing great ideas to the table to help solve the retailer's most important problems, and then integrating your brands and your ideas into solving those problems. And so COVID hit, contactless delivery became an incredible thing. And the 3 years I was at Provi, I was able to scale from like 2 or 3 states at the time to 20, 30, 40 states, work with major organizations like Breakthrough Beverage, Eagle Rock, which was a fantastic partnership. And then over time, I really just wanted to get into really driving commercial, like commercial innovation around technology. So enter Rarig Pacific, where now I'm leading. Every day I wake up and I'm incredibly curious about what problems distributors have, not just in beer, but in beverage and food service. And how can I leverage technology and build solutions that help create efficiencies and drive the best outcomes for them? And so as I kind of look back, it's given me kind of this incredible resume, but it really comes down to his perspective at the end of the day. And I understand how decisions sort of ripple across organizations. And I understand how, just because I'm selling a technology that is activated upon in the operational space or within the 4 walls or within like a delivery process, there's incredible value for the sales team, for the VP of sales when we get into like the results that it drives. And so I'm all about like that wallet management mentality. Like, don't just get the VP in the room. There's a reason marketing should be involved in a sales pitch, why the VP of sales should be involved in a market pitch, of course, the CFO. And so when I think about just like getting into the market with the right solutions, it's about grabbing the attention of every cross-functional department, understanding their needs state, and then figuring out how we can solve their problems and help them reach their goals. So at the end of the day, it's people, process, and technology working together. And I think that's just what we're going to continue to see as the future evolves throughout the industry.
Definitely a huge runway, a resume, and a ton of stuff. Like, this ain't no hobby for us, and this ain't no hobby for you either, Sean. So I love the excitement. When you're working with clients now in your role at Rarig Pacific, because you're really heavy on the operations side, what is keeping distributors up at night right now around the operations, right? Gas is $5, $6 a gallon on the diesel side. You're back in that kind of mode of, although maybe the consumer from time to time, our argument of the consumers, it doesn't feel like it's $5 a gallon or as much as it did in 2006 and 2007, 2008, the last time it was really bad like this. But operators are still feeling it. Margin pressures are challenging. Those are things out there on the sales side. So what's keeping distributors up at night on their end in your world, and how you are working with distributors to create efficiencies and kind of grow?
It's one of the core questions at the beginning or discovery process of our sales process is understanding what each stakeholder's goals are, right? And I open more broadly with exactly that question, right? Like, just what keeps you up, VP of Ops, right? Just talk me through what keeps you up at night. So I love the question. And I think it really boils down to kind of four concepts. And it's about improving productivity while keeping people engaged, right? Keeping them effective and prepared for what's next, which I know we'll get into like a little bit of the future and what it looks like, but it's productivity without burnout. Everybody is getting more put on their plate. And so how can they maximize the employee without burning them out? It's about managing the pace of change. And I think this is an interesting one, because I think there's a lot of the industry is still kind of stuck in some old ways here and there and in different areas. But at the same time, there's a real breath of fresh air of where distributors are grabbing on to understanding that the pace of change is real. And so how do you build a culture around embracing that change and then integrating in the various solutions that you believe are going to drive the best value for you? Third, turning data into action. Now, go back to 2003, 2004, we were begging for more data, right? We were begging for everything. Now we're in a world where it's like, all right, I have too much data. How do I make it work? And one of my favorite lines in the whole industry I learned from one of my most favorite people several years back is insights without action is just overhead, right? And so you can have all the data and insights you want, but if you are not effectively leveraging that to make better decisions that drive effective and better outcomes, distributors aren't going to win. And it frustrates me when somebody will pay for a product and then not deeply focus on how to maximize their ROI on that, right? And so at the end of the day, like, data only matters when it comes down to if it changes what somebody does next. And I just think distributors are just figuring all of that out, and everything seems really complex when you try to bring all these things together. But at the end of the day, I think it really comes down to that, is like, how do we get to a point where all of these things are driving better behaviors for the next outcome, not what happened in the past?
You've been through so many different roles and so many different departments, right? From ops to sales to supplier side. What do you think is what causes the most friction unintentionally working together? What departments unintentionally work together that you think they don't really realize it, but yet when you kind of look at it through your view and you know, through the data side and everything else, you're like, ooh, you guys are actually working opposites. What departments do you think really struggle with that?
It's, I look at, I've probably walked into 400 distributors across the country. And I think within minutes, you kind of see how things unfold between the walls and then how they unfold out in the market. And it's interesting. I was having a conversation with an ops leader who said to me, well, every time a driver reports an over or short, they blame everything on the warehouse, right? And it's like, you're the same team, right? Like hopefully you are all out in a united front to execute towards the same goals, right? Like make product available and marketed on the shelf for your consumers. The worst thing is an out of stock on the shelf at the end of the day, right? Literally, that is the one thing nobody in the system wants at the end of the day. And so that's like an internal, like in the same room friction that and then the second one I think is quite the obvious one, right? It's like, it's the church and state thing. It's sales and it's operations. And, most organizations do a really good job of bringing those two communities and functions together with to drive towards a common goal. And obviously mission statements help drive that. But, one of the most interesting sort of points of friction I see is, hey, I just got the over short report. I'm the VP of sales, right? I just got the over short report from what was delivered yesterday. We had 150 shorts reported by our drivers. Yet when I pull an inventory report, all 150 of those items were in stock last night. So what gives? Why did that happen, right? And so I think like on the surface, you kind of look at a little bit of that and like, those are such easy problems to solve. It's just, it goes back to the visibility. That the visibility is not there and decisions are being made on assumptions. And then what happens as a domino effect of that is then there's an accounting person and a reconciliation person doing all kinds of homework post-reconciliation and throughout that process. That is literally their full-time job, when there is technology and solutions that can literally cut 99% of that work out. And so, and then then you fold in technology, right? And that like adoption creates friction, and, change management creates friction and all those types of things. And so, when I look at where we've implemented technology more recently, I mentioned old dogs and new tricks. You get the drivers, as an example, who still want to downstack off a side loader and break their back every day, wheeling in stack after stack, when we literally can provide them a piece of equipment that can take the pallet all the way into the beer cave and they touch the product one time, right? And so it's just, we have to break these old habits that I think are kind of holding back and creating friction within organizations to move it forward.
Sean, you can't be a driver and be a diva if you're not breaking your back every day, right,
Yeah.
Mikey?
Yeah, I had a lot of follow-up questions on that, but the most important follow-up question: what would one of those pieces of equipment that would move beer from, say, a end loader into an account all on one piece with no, you don't need a dolly or a hand truck or anything. It's just one piece of equipment that goes from the truck into the account.
What's that thing called?
All right, it's the Duo Lift. We're not going to get into infomercials today about our product, but
well, the Duo Lift.
Oh, you missed the joke.
The Duo Lift
more towards
is
the U-boat.
the Duo Lift is the fancy version of a U-boat, in which Ross doesn't know what a U-boat is.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I mean, like,
So, we got a lot of comments on that. So
yeah,
I might be voted off.
I have 6-wheeler customers that just still believe it's the greatest thing, and there's just a better way. I tell every customer that I get in a conversation with about that, like, in 2003, if I had the ability to not touch that case 15 times, I would have embraced it and I would have taken on more, put more stops on my truck, because I had a variable pay, right? I had a salary pay plus a cents per case that I delivered, right? Which I think is one of the strategies you can use. And so it motivates drivers to want to take on more and actually appreciate the capacity that their trailer can hold, and not just how fast can I get done today. And so, you see a lot of these drivers, retention, things like that. Why don't we go drive a fuel truck? Because I don't have to lift anything, right? Yeah. And like, there is such a cool function of this. And I think I'm biased, right? This is the most incredible industry ever. And I love every component of it, good, bad, and ugly. But drivers and merchandisers have incredibly tough jobs. And if we can eliminate half of the backbreaking, if not 80% of it or whatever, everybody should be striving to do that, because it'll drive retention up. It opens the doors for different types of employees to become part of these organizations, because they don't have to repetitively lift 30, 40, 50 pounds, 180 pounds in a half barrel at a time, when there's technology that can move it from a truck to the cooler without even lifting a finger, right? And so little tangent there, but yeah, I mean, it's just like, there's so much opportunity. It's incredible.
We're going to need to get Ross out with the chain merch team and experience some U-boats and maybe a duo lift at a customer, Sean.
Well, and one of the things a couple of years ago, I took I was taking kind of a career break, actually, before I joined Rarig. I took a little bit of a break, and I did a touch of some consulting work operationally for a distributor. And I've done plenty of work without my career, a lot more selling in recent years than throwing cases all day. But SKU proliferation has drastically changed the ability to execute at speed. I mean, granted, I'm an outsider going, all right, do you sell this product or not? Where is it on the shelf set? Where does it go? But just having to grab a 6-pack among 6,000 SKUs versus a 6-pack among 300 SKUs, or whatever it was 25 years ago, has really complicated the game at the end of the day. And so again, I just have to double down on, like, there are crazy ways that we can make this job much more effective and easier, so that, these employees can go home and still wrestle with their kids and not be dead tired at the end of the day.
Yeah. Mikey, we were one of the tried and true 6-wheelers that Sean's talking about too. When we made that move, so behind the curtains here, Sean, what we did is that somehow we had in our union contract at the time that we could pay a different rate if it was a different type of truck. And like, nobody realized that was the way it was worded. And Mikey's kind of piercing his lips and laughing, because that was how we executed on this. And like, I came to the game and I was like, everybody else is there. We're allowed to do this. Nobody is fighting us on this. So we're going to take this route from 120,000 cases to 220,000 cases. And we're going to do that this year. And we did this. The Duo, I don't think was out then. So we bought Mikey, like 400 6-wheelers or something.
Yeah, we bought a ton of those 6-wheelers, U-boats, yep. Ross. And
they're so like janky. I mean, they just like.
Oh, wait until you push them in the snow.
Yeah. I mean,
and it was from our bulk truck, being basically downstacking the pallet within the truck and wheeling it in the account to be able to just wheel in a half an order on one cart, or a full order in some cases too, right into the cooler.
Yep. When we made that move, Curtis was our driver, and he was like the happiest driver that we had ever had. Nervous Nelly, like, talk about somebody who wandered around with a heart attack pending at any given moment. But he really liked that, and he stayed on that route until the end, right? I think he did. Yeah. I think he finished his career with us on the route. Route.
He wasn't one for change. So in the beginning, he was kind of, mumbling under his breath a lot.
Story of my life, right?
Yeah, and just because I think it was, it's different. But then, a few months in, he loved it. He was like, "Oh, this is great." As long as there wasn't too much snow on the ground.
But did he end his career earlier than he had to, because he was shoving 6-wheelers through the snow all day?
No, he ended his career because he ended his career because I'm a sellout and I fired him.
Wow.
He actually went to go work for another beer distributor, selling, delivering beer at another beer distributor again.
Yeah, but then he came back. He wanted to come back.
He left to go deliver furniture, and then
Camper.
he did come back to work with us. And then when we sold, then he went to another beer
Yeah.
distributor. So Curtis, to Curtis's credit, he was one of our best drivers. I love the man, but was a very nervous human being. For sure.
It wasn't an individualized fire; it was a mass firing. But fired.
Does Curtis know he has a
Mike.
cameo on this today?
Yep. So on our last day that are running our beer distributorship, we were sitting around the breaker room drinking breakers, and Tommy, our sales manager, was shaking people's hand and firing people. It was hilarious. As much fun as we could have at that moment.
Yeah.
I love it. Ross, anything you want to get in here on the operational side? Because you come from this background as well, too.
Well, I thought I'd ask a kind of a tangential question, just because it's been asked of me so many times, and I think Bud and Mike as well. Take technology out of it. What's the best way to structure compensation on the operation side, specifically around warehouse and delivery, in your experience and your thought?
It's interesting because you see kind of a few different dynamics, right? You see this daily rate component, which I guess kind of turns into a salary at the end of the day. I mean, if you're showing up every day, you're kind of guaranteed this flat rate. And then, so I've seen models like that work that also have some sort of variable compensation on top of it. Maybe that's a cents per cases that's delivered throughout the pay period and different things like that. Hourly is tricky in my opinion, because there's the side of it where a delivery person may drag out the entire day to accumulate some of that overtime. And it's not necessarily, all of that time is not necessarily dedicated to actually doing flawless execution, right? And so you got to kind of balance some of those things. And I've heard from a couple of customers where they say, you know, there's a sweet spot where we built into that they build into their routing sort of optimization components and how they look at routing, where they are hourly, but there's like a sweet spot where you don't give them too much in a day, but you don't give them too little. And then they kind of like split the difference in how, and kind of their timing throughout the day and when they start, when they come back, and different things like that. I personally like, because I'm a big execution guy. If you're a drop and go driver who's dropping all day and that's kind of what your core role is, that's one thing. But if you're a driver that is executing at any level, either with a helper or working stops on your own or whatever that looks like, I believe there's a real sweet spot with like guaranteed salary that then ropes in some sort of incentive around wanting to do more, right? Let's make sure your truck is full and you are rewarded for that because you're given a couple cents per case or whatever that number is. And then additionally, I believe in the driver supervisor leadership world, if you're not, measuring what you need to manage and going out there and surveying the execution at the retail level every month and making sure that these drivers are doing their job correctly, you can implement maybe like a quarterly incentive piece based on their rotation and their display building and their POS installation and all that kind of stuff, shelf filling and all that stuff. So, because that kind of brings the whole equation, in my opinion, together. I think if you just go out and pay somebody to just make sure cases go inside the door, that may be what you get. If you focus on speed and efficiency, but also great execution and motivate drivers through some sort of model that allows you to provide more to them if they're delivering more and taking on more, I think a lot of drivers would welcome that, and not every day is the same. If you're 5 days a week, Mondays are always lighter. We all know that. And the week just kind of gradually picks up, right? Every week. And so, that in my experience, I loved back in the day. That's kind of what my structure looked like. And when I was in operations leadership, I thought that was most effective. But I think it's kind of, you see a lot of these enterprise level distributors. Maybe I'm hearing this more in beverage a little bit. They go hourly, but then they face other challenges. And so, I think it's how people want to approach it at the end of the day.
Specifically around those KPIs you mentioned. I mean, you went in pretty hard on the KPIs around, shorting, overages, and how that relates to the warehouse. I mean, and technology can get us so far, but what about compensation and people?
For overs and shorts, and
how do you handle, or how do you optimize around that KPI from a human perspective?
Accountability. I mean, if I had to, that's like the first thing that comes to mind. I mean, I think where if you don't have some sort of technology or insider data point managing, providing that level or granular level of information, it's really hard to manage that component of it. And that's often with all the customers that we talk to, that's one of them in their current state. While route accounting systems have fantastic and very robust software and capabilities, and I think, Bud, we were in Denver a couple months. We're all in Denver a couple months ago together, and I just hate to say it, I feel like we're going towards a path where AI agents and all those types of things need to be involved in order to effectively manage it with speed. And so again, like if I go back to who is responsible for the initial answer is the order selector is responsible for that short, if it is in fact in stock, right? If it's not in stock, then it's the forecasting person potentially, or the supplier, whoever that might be, that in terms of why that product isn't in the warehouse and available to be put on an outbound load to go to the truck. And so I think if you look at how distributors manage inbound flow for warehouse inventory and then outbound accuracy, how does that translate all the way downstream to that six pack literally being put on the shelf and not ever being out of stock? And so I think there's core accountability checkpoints along the way. But I think it's difficult to do if you're not leveraging data and some sort of technology to help track and provide that visibility for you.
It's a little bit like the Mike Rowe when he was doing Dirty Jobs. I don't know if any of you three saw this episode, but he did an episode on airline bag handling. And when he got done with the episode, he got somewhere in the middle of it, it was like, so when people get really mad that they lose their bags, I've now seen how this works, and we should be more impressed that we actually receive our bag back than the airline lost it. And that's where the beer industry has really kind of come, or the beverage alcohol industry has really come from the late 2000 or late 90s, which was very, very simple portfolios, to now thousands and thousands and thousands of SKUs. And we're still kind of at that same level, right, Sean, of surprise when we screw things up. But in reality, those order pickers they have so much to juggle in terms of running around a warehouse, managing the WMS, finding the right product, matching it with it, making sure they're picking the right quantity, but then also rinse and repeating that with some kind of pace, because there's a tolerable amount of speed in which every distributor wants people to do on pick rate per hour and everything else. And like the accuracy is just going to be challenged from time to time. And if you have, let's be honest, let's be real. It's the most lowest paid entry level job in our warehouse. And it's one of the more important jobs in our warehouse as well, too. And it's tough to get people to work nights if you're picking up nights. And it's just a hard thing. And which really kind of leads us into where you see some of this going technology wise in the warehouse and then operations side. So tell us a little bit more about the vision for the future that you have and where you see this going, what you're kind of working on in the world right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I lead technology commercialization and innovation for Rarig Pacific on the category team. And it's interesting because there's a lot of conversations that start by, if you're trying to drive efficiencies and different things like that, one of the more direct routes that sort of comes up is, well, if I can eliminate people, I'm eliminating costs, right? And I'm a fundamental believer is that the end goal is not to strip people out of this business, right? It's to help the business create more value with the people they have. Enter technology, right? And so I don't believe the future is just automation by any means. I think there's some challenges if somebody can get into that. But I really think it focuses on how technology can promote better decision making. And I think of kind of 4 concepts as I run through that as well. 1, reactive to predictive. Nobody cares about what happened yesterday. I mean, it's great if you learn from what happened yesterday. We really care about what's going to happen next and how do I approach it in the most effective way. And so one of the things when I was coaching the Heineken sales team a few years back, this is in 2018, I was always saying, we're going to stop looking in the rearview mirror and we're going to focus our attention looking through the windshield and where we're going, not where we've been. And it's the same concept like internally with my work now. When we sit down and try to carve out solving problems and doing all these things, it's not about reporting the news. It's about creating headlines. So I come to the table and say, at a QBR, not, well, here's how you performed. Obviously, we cover gaps and opportunities to improve maximizing value and efficiency based on data and metrics. But we're moving to a predictive model where it's what is actually going to happen next. And so we can make the decision around that. AI augments people. That's like kind of point number 2. I don't know about you guys, but I have, this may sound kind of even weird. My wife would kind of run in here and go like, yeah, he's got like an AI friend now, right? like I use AI to quite literally dictate and have conversations with, to like clear my head of thinking and to pressure test different ideas, whether that's my fitness in my personal life or like just being a good dad. And I'm not saying it always gives you the best advice, which is like a key component or a key watch out, right? But like when it comes to my day-to-day execution, I'm using AI in every aspect of my job. And I'm taking a 3-hour mundane task and I can turn it into an effective 45 minutes and then deliver something 2 weeks earlier than anybody else would have ever imagined, right? And so I think that's where the industry needs to go. It's where it's going. I think it's kind of, in some areas, it's moving very fast. And it's true to the core of who the innovative customers are who are grabbing onto these things, and they're not scared or terrified of the idea of it. No matter how much you try to control any type of environment, truth matters. And at the end of the day, control can get you to a certain level of what truth is, but it can't certify any truth with certainty, right? And so when you look at technology like computer vision and OCR technology and being able to like physically read the exact contents on an exact type of pallet and understand what cameras are reading, can tell the absolute truth of what is on every single pallet at the SKU and quantity, dimension, and weight level. And you bring these things together, you can tell a complete story with almost utter certainty that can drive value all the way downstream. And I think like, if I think a little bit about like what we're aspiring to do, is it's to create truth within the entire ecosystem of the industry, right? Throughout all 3 tiers, because everybody benefits at the end of the day. Suppliers are happy when products are on the shelf. Distributors are happy when they're operating effectively, and cases that are sold are cases that show up at the point of delivery. Retailers are happy when their shelves are executed in full and their store is serviced, because we know how much service demand is, right? Like that's just an insane cost, right, for these distributors. And then at the end of the day, we all don't have jobs if the consumer isn't buying the product, right? And so if all those things fall in line together, even to where the consumer has no idea, nor do they care how it got to the store, but if the product is there, that's what's important. And so I don't think the future is about what happened. I think it's understanding what's about to happen. And organizations that win will be the ones where they help people adapt this level of technology that is ever changing and just use it to make better decisions and go to the market in a smarter way.
What's the future of the warehouse in terms of automation? What's your vision of the future here? What's the path?
Are you gonna tap into humanoid robots here as part of this? Like, should we?
Well, I mean, there's a spectrum, right? There is, because you said humans augmented. That's one place, right? Another one is this, automation heading towards specialized robots and specialized picking, specialized equipment. And then there's this frontier of, let's just say, Optimus retooled into the environment of humans. So it's the human environment, but operated or walked through by AI-enabled robots. So there's a spectrum here. And I'm just curious as to where you see the world as it is today, maybe 5 years, 10 years, and how you see it playing out.
Yeah, I mean, I think robots are real. I'll kind of tackle kind of all of it, wrapping it all up. But at the end of the day, if I go back to like the idea of truth, they require and depend on operational truth in order to execute accurately, right? And so, and when you think about automation, there's incredible automation going on out there that is streamlining and driving real value for the industry. And there's many distributors who are really embracing these levels of technology. But what I think is sort of really important here is that I believe the human can never go away. I mean, if you were to go fully automated in any capacity where there's no humans picking cases in the warehouse and that system goes down, you are dead in the water, right? And so it requires this level of this high level of employee that can still troubleshoot, manage, make effective decisions to make sure that controlled environments are still operating as expected. And so human interaction still has to happen there. Like if I just think about like a replen person putting the wrong pallet in the wrong pick face, the robot's going to go to the pick face and potentially pick the product. And it could be the entire wrong product. And then you have 139 pallets with the wrong product going out because it was told to go, it knew to go to that pick face. I'm not suggesting that maybe it won't have computer vision built right into it, right? Where it's like, it can actually read the case it's picking up and go, well, that's not right based on what I'm thinking here or what I'm told to do. But I love the phrase, like a robot can execute the wrong task perfectly, right? And so it's just like if you're going into Chat GPT or AI and you're talking through things, there's this human cognition side and all these different variables that still don't necessarily allow it to spit out the most accurate answer. And so I think in 10 years, there's going to be a world where absolutely there are humanoid robots and AMRs and, ASRS and all these things fully interacting with humans throughout an operational process. And you see where driverless trucks are starting to create a couple of headlines and, could humanoid robots actually deliver product at retail? It's going to be really cool to try and figure out. But I think we're multiple years away from trying to figure that out, right? But I don't think at the end of the day that that automation, it doesn't eliminate the need for operational truth at the end of the day. So I think you have to have a combination of whatever automation or robotics you desire as that starts to unfold, but with some sort of technology that verifies truth at the end of the day, that then helps benefit the whole chain of custody or downstream impacts of all operational processes.
Mikey, could you imagine a humanoid robot? We'd have to name him Jeff too.
Jeff and Larry.
Okay, Jeff and Larry too. Yeah, Jeff and Larry Jr.
And it's I was at Modex back in April, right, in Atlanta, and I'd never been to it, and it was the first time I'd been to it, and I was overwhelmed at what I was looking at, right, and And then you start thinking about, and Ross, this will go back a little bit to it, because I think this is a really core important component of this industry that we are, I believe, breaking up a little bit. But look, every customer who has technology products or products that are competing against other products, you have to build your moat around those products, right? Like every smart vendor in this industry with any type of product needs to create a moat around their technology solutions, whatever it is in their products. But at the end of the day, and no matter what, and I'm going down a strategic partnership direction here, right? Like automation, robotics, computer vision, streamlining decision-making, the outcomes and the end result are going to continue to rely heavily on the evolution of strategic partnerships being created and continuing to sort of flourish. And so while you might have some competing overlap, I would encourage a ton of automation companies, robotics companies, route accounting companies to look at the opportunity and believe that high tide raises all ships. And we should all be looking where we have similarities, but where we can complement each other to drive the best outcome for our distributors or our customers at the end of the day. Because we have to be able to break down some of those walls where it can happen and integrate as much as possible to create these incredibly robust ecosystems that can seamlessly solve all of these challenges. And at the end of the day, all of those integrated, strategic partners would benefit at the end of the day if a customer were to buy into the whole understanding of what operationally it could do for their organization. And I think that's really important for the future is break down some of those walls to bring partners together in a better way, and then go to the market sort of holding hands at times and going in that direction.
Mikey, I don't want to miss the opportunity to talk about where you're at real quick too. For anybody on the YouTube, we've seen Mikey's beautiful background. He has been on the road. This is the first time we've talked, Mikey, in a week and a half, I think.
Yeah.
You've been.
Yeah, I think this is day 11 that I've been off grid.
Has been great. I haven't bugged you. I've been really good, haven't I?
It's been amazing. Yeah, I keep like, hey, is everybody alive? Is everything okay? I check in with Alicia almost every day, and then I checked in with you. I'm like, hey, are you all right?
And Mike, when Bud said, hey, Mikey's going to be on a couple week little trip here, let's schedule this conversation right in the middle of it so we really interrupt all the fun. I haven't seen a bear or moose in the background. I'm waiting for one. But
I mean, the heart of moose country. This is actually in a campground right now, just outside of Jackson Hole. We were in the forest, camping off grid, like doing some backcountry. I saw some pretty cool animals, but this campground here is notorious for moose just walking through like your campsite. So, and the Snake River is probably 200 feet behind me, so you can hear it kind of ripping through there. We went whitewater rafting yesterday down there. That was pretty amazing.
Nice.
But yeah, been waiting for a moose, and it's bear country too. So we've seen a black bear, but we haven't seen a grizzly yet.
Well, the most dangerous animal is the moose.
Yeah.
I'm gonna run up and pet it. I'm gonna try to get a selfie with it.
No, more people die in moose incidents than any other animal.
Mikey.
They're mean.
When we were in Yellowstone, you should have seen, I mean, all the signs and all the things that they tell you about the wildlife and staying away. And we're driving on the road. You see buffalo about every 30 minutes, or bison. And we come up to this one, and it's kind of like a traffic jam because there's a giant herd of all these bison. And people were literally like outside of their car, up in the field with the herd, taking selfies. And I'm like, you guys want to pull over and watch somebody get trampled real quick? Because this is going to happen any minute. But it's pretty incredible.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you got to join us today, Mikey. I'm glad you're having fun. Are you coming back this weekend?
Yeah, we start the voyage home tomorrow. So
Nice.
Tomorrow's Friday. So yeah, we start the 24-hour journey home.
24-hour journey home. Awesome. Well, Sean, on your end, to finish up here, tell us about how people can get in front of you, get a hold of you, say, hey, I want to learn more, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and number one, I should have thanked you up front, but I really appreciate the time. You know, when you and I chatted in Denver a couple months ago, I was thrilled to be able to come on and have this conversation.
We're happy to have you. Thanks for joining us too.
Yeah, I mean, the script was flipped, right? Like I do a little bit of podcast hosting on our end. Shameless plug, no. I was actually more nervous to come to this side and be the one answering the questions. So I don't know why, because things just kind of flow, and when you've spent this much time, it just kind of all comes together. So appreciate all the time. And if I were to give like the 45-second spiel of Rarig, I know you kind of asked, what am I excited about working on and all those types of things. If I really just look at the big picture goals of what we're trying to do, we're trying to provide an operational source of truth. We're trying to turn data into action for our customers. We really genuinely want to help people work smarter, not harder, literally. So how do we augment the human potential? And I think the most important thing, and I hit on earlier, is building trust across the entire supply chain. And that comes through visibility with the products that we provide and things like that. And so if we can provide tools that allow greater confidence throughout the supply chain, people can spend less time on validating transactions and working through disputes and all of that kind of stuff. And so, we're incredibly passionate about empowering our team internally to innovate on solutions that are all centered around the responsibility of delivering goods, resources, and ideas. And so at the end of the day, we would love to talk to anybody who's interested in learning more, right? And so my email is Sean Baker, SeanBaker @Rarig.com. That's REHRIG.com. So Sean Baker @Rarig.com. And from that point, I interact with the sales team daily, and depending on kind of where the conversation goes, or if you want to have a conversation with me, then we'll move things around to the right place to start exploring what it is that we do and how we may be able to help solve some of your most important goals and the biggest challenges that you face. And so, just again, I think I work for a team that is incredibly open to helping people solve problems, and we're going to continue to do that in this industry. I'm excited about where we're going and the things that we kind of have behind the scenes and what's going to evolve over the next couple of years. So again, yeah, thank you for the time, and love it. Love everything that we've talked about today, and hope to see anybody again soon. So
that's awesome. If anybody is in the Dallas area, I think it's in the Dallas area, right, Sean? One of your facilities, one of your educational and touring facilities too. I've been through that place a couple of times. It's really cool to check out, because Rarig, if you go online and do any research, much bigger company than just what the business that you work with, or business unit you work with in the beverage alcohol space. You guys make trash bins, you make all of the plastic carriers for basically Pepsi 2 liters, a bunch of milk cartons where you cut your teeth as well.
Every beer distributor doesn't usually know it, but 99% of them have Anheuser-Busch and Molson Coors pallets sitting in their warehouse, and they came from us, So we're already integrated into the supply chain. And so now it's about all the other things that we can offer directly to the distributor to help their business. So yeah,
and you probably have a rare trash can sitting in your house, in your home too, more than likely as well.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. So it's a cool place to check out if you're ever in the Dallas area. Sean, I can't thank you enough for joining us today and kind of sharing your knowledge with our listeners and what you see happening on the operational side, because we don't touch the operational a ton. We talk to our clients about it, but it's a lot of fun to have somebody who's spending a lot more time on it than us, because we do come from that background. Mikey, thanks for taking the break today and getting the background. We had to get the background shot, Sean. That was why we had to get the background.
I moose walk through, but
I probably have a scorpion running along the wall right here, and it's 150 degrees. So, jealous, Mike.
Well, if you like what we're doing, continue to like, listen, and subscribe, and share with a friend. You can hit us up with any listener questions at info@vxptech.com. That's info@vxptech.com. We will pass your question along to Sean as well if you want to hit us up that way too, and reach out to Sean directly if you've got questions with him. So Bud, hostess with the Moses, Data Mike, Ross, Sean, thanks for joining us today, boys. And cheers to everybody out there.